We are all pieces of God. We chose to descend to the material plane, to become many, in many forms, so that God may know itself by seeing itself in many, by experience itself as many, by experience itself as being separate from that one unity that God started out as, and still is. The material plane can be compared to fingers, skin cells, the hair on the hand, fingernails of the one source. So, in many religions, you see that there's talk of, all glory be to God, or who that believeth in him shall not perish. There's this direction of, believing in God. So there must be kind of an opposite, right? Now, the opposite isn't necessarily evil or anything like that. The opposite is in not gazing upon that central soul that exists in everything. Choosing to glorify being just on the exterior, of not recognizing the unitary oneness. Instead, looking upon life as just an iteration, but not thinking of the highest. When you see, God begat his only son to save the world, not to condemn it. Godhead descends in the form of avatars to teach all the pieces the path back to Godhead, back to joining with that oneness in its entirety that we were once a part of. A son of God or a daughter of God, an avatar, is a section of that highest Godhead consciousness that isolates itself in the material plane, but still holds on to that identity and that realization and that actualization of oneness, and teaching all the other forms below how to get back to Godhead. There isn't just one son of God or one daughter of God. There's many avatars, and we're all destined to be as Christ, as Krishna, as Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. We're all destined to reach that level. When Christ said, only through me can you achieve this or that, he didn't mean his person. He meant this state of consciousness, this state of Christ or Krishna consciousness that we're all meant to reach once more, that we're all meant to attain once more. But for all of us who are the pieces who have kind of descended and are still a part of the game, still a part of the illusion that we are separate, it's useful to play the game as we're playing it now, as this singular person, and to worship God as a separate, while still in the back of our head understanding and knowing that it's really us. It is said, and many Hindu swamis have said, that God's favorite game is worship, is spirituality, is religion. The game that is the illusion of separation and adoration of something that's separate, but still as a seemingly divided thing, worshiping the seemingly separate oneness or source that we are yet to join back with. That's God's favorite game, is worship, is religion, is spirituality. Least favorite game would probably be just living for pleasure, or just living for material desire, for the things that are even a further fringe from being a human being, for material itself, things that aren't yet conscious, still has the same soul behind it, but aren't yet conscious. That is the opposite of a spiritual path, just living for material. And there are spiritual practices that you can practice to achieve certain powers over materials, to achieve certain powers over other people. But this part of the game leads one further away into back towards material, back towards a lack of illumination, back towards darkness. It's not necessarily evil, but it is away from Godhead, away from the game that God loves most, which is worship. For Hindus, and for many spiritual people, and for many kinds of paths, but I'm using Hinduism here. For Hindus, like for many pagans, in Vedic times, there was still this, we were coming out of this understanding that everything is one, and that everything is a part of God. So there are all these hymns, there are all these ways of worship that are laid down in the Vedas, to various gods, to various sections of God. Somewhere along the way, and it's being realized once more, but somewhere along the way, people forgot that, you know, all these different gods are part of the one God, and all these various hymns is all part of the game, but everything is one. Somewhere along the way, Vedanta was lost. Oneness, the understanding of oneness was lost, and it's being found again. Because if you just have the knowledge of all these hymns, all these ways of worship, and all these different gods, if you just have that knowledge and the understanding behind it is lost, then it may seem like a big section of Hinduism, many spiritual paths, and many pagan paths are just trying to achieve something, things that these gods can give you, or states of being that these gods can give you, or these various rituals, what to accomplish materially. But once we have that understanding of oneness and that everything's a part of God, once we have that again, the hymns and the various gods take on a whole new meaning. We understand that we already have these things. We're just uncovering what was lost within ourselves, taking away the casings of oneness, of that knowledge, and taking it away in various forms, various unique forms, to reveal what we are within, that we've always been within. And the Upanishads, my favorite of all Hindu texts, in the Upanishads, talks about Atman, one soul, an individualized jiva, individualized soul, trying to achieve that state of oneness, of one consciousness, of oneness of soul that's inherent in all of us, that isn't lacking, that isn't coming from somewhere else, that doesn't need to view itself as separate, but understands that it is one. And the Upanishads, those who wrote them, the rishis, the sages, in the Upanishads, they say, it doesn't matter who we are. We know that in the future you'll want to know who we are, but it doesn't matter who we are individually. What matters is the truth and the soul that we are preaching, that you can take up this knowledge in the future at any point, and it'll still be true. You will still be attaining the Atman. You will still be attaining the ultimate self and the truth behind everything. And the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas are seen as the grass in an analogy. The Upanishads are seen as the cow. And the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, that exists in the Mahabharata, the Song of Man. The Bhagavad Gita is seen as the milk squeezed from the udders of the cow. And the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about God in a very, compared to other Hindu texts, it seems like a completely different train of thought, because it's treating God as something separate, not an inner soul to achieve, but something separate, something away that we have to believe in, just like in Christianity in a way, that we have to believe in and follow the right path towards. And in the Bhagavad Gita, God is only Vishnu. Now, the truth behind the Bhagavad Gita, the deeper truth behind that text, showing that you can interpret these texts in a number of ways, is that it's showing you how nature operates and the nature of the game of separation, and how to get back to Godhead without telling you directly that everything's a part of the same thing. It is showing you the game of worship and how to practice it toward a single God, kind of going back away from that idea that there are many gods, because at some point the knowledge of oneness was lost. So it's leading us back into the game of worship, of worshiping a God that is kind of over all of everything. Now, there are long ways back to Godhead. There are shorter ways. There are medium ways. However you work back to Godhead, however you view soul, spirituality, religion, however you view God as being separate, or there being many gods and God, or vice versa, however you view all this as your uniqueness, and there's nothing wrong with that. It shows the uniqueness of your soul, the way that you want to walk back towards Godhead, how you want to walk towards God, to that unity, to that oneness of consciousness that you had at some point and you're trying to achieve again. And that's something that I love about Hinduism, is that there's this acceptance of many paths, and there's that knowledge in the Upanishads of Atman, of Brahman being the ultimate truth, of soul being the ultimate truth, the ultimate oneness. It is a great place. Graveyards are great places to worship the Divine Mother Kali. You can burn sage. You can come here and say Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Kali, Om, and just say over and over again, or Om Shri Mahakali Kaye Namaha. Now, Kali is God to me. She is the path through which I worship and work my way back to Godhead. That is my path. And while Kali might seem strange and scary because of all the skulls, or that she is the goddess of cremation grounds and graveyards, she is blatantly telling you, showing you, and asserting that you are not this material. Burn it. Do away with it. Do away with material consciousness. Do away with the obsession with the body, or the obsession with continuing pleasure, or continuing a life in the game. That doesn't mean kill yourself. That means find your way back to me, God. And she says that through all the various symbols, through how she appears, and the teachings of her devotees. Sri Ramakrishna being one of the first and foremost that we know of, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. But Sri Ramakrishna gave us, once again, we had this many thousands of years ago, but gave us once again God as mother, working towards God through the path of worshiping her as mother. And now Kali, it might seem like a scary mother or a very stern mother, but she's showing you that this is just material. Stop glorifying it. Get rid of all those egoic attachments, of all of those very materialistic dreams, and focus on working your way back to me, God. That's what she does by how she displays herself and what she teaches us through her devotees. Graveyards, if you respect them, if you spend time in them, if you talk to the dead, if you make offerings to the dead, graveyards are a great place to worship Ma Kali, because you feel the consciousness of beyond materiality in graveyards, just by the nature of them, by the level of consciousness in them, the level of realization that's just in the air, in the soil, in the trees, in the grass itself. These are very much connected to Kali, and you feel that oneness with Ma when you're in a graveyard and you truly connect to the energy there. That's why I come to graveyards very often. Well, I've been coming longer than I knew this, actually, and I've learned to feel graveyards as a womb, the womb of Ma, where the layers of materiality, material consciousness are kind of stripped away just a little bit more than in other places. And that's why I chose to talk about God and Kali and some spiritual topics today. It's been kind of a rant video. Thank you very much for watching, though. Like this video, it really helps out the channel. Feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to share this wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.